Hey, what's up? This is Steve at the Range Minded Podcast, and today I want to take just a few minutes to talk about using a knife as a defensive tool to defend your life or the life of a loved one. First and foremost, you need to understand carrying a knife in self-defense is a big deal. There's a lot of local laws that are going to be different between states, cities, and municipalities. Ignorance is no excuse to get you out of trouble. Make sure that as we're talking about these things, that you seek out those local laws in your area. There's a lot of different features that could disqualify for you from carrying a knife. It might be size, it might be weight, it might be how they open. It is important, it is imperative that if you choose to carry a knife as a defensive tool, that you understand the laws in your areas. And also, I am not an attorney, this is not legal advice, this is just solely my opinion on this subject. All right, again, so it's important to understand every state, every city, even some localities have different rules on what kind of knives you can carry. It is, like I said before, it is an imperative that if you're choosing to carry a knife as a defensive tool, that you understand those laws. I cannot stress this enough. A lot of people get in trouble thinking, well, it's just a knife, nobody's going to care anything about it, and I can just use it as a defensive tool. Again, ignorance will not save you from any kind of legal ramifications that might exist. You got to think about there's criminal and then there's civil courts, okay? You can be sued in a civil court even in a defensive situation. There's hundreds of cases out there that show even though the person was in defense of their own life, they were found guilty in a civil court and they are serving time. That happens more than you think. Please, I beg you, understand those laws. Again, some of the things that might disqualify the knife that you're carrying in your area could be the length of the blade. It could be how the blade opens, whether it's like a switch blade or a drop open, or there's like they call it a wave. I'll show you some knives in a minute. There's a lot of different ways that blade can be deployed that might not be legal where you live. Understand those laws. I cannot stress that enough. All right, let's talk about why you might want to choose a knife to carry. First of all, they're way easier to carry than maybe a firearm or obviously a baseball bat or something like that. Not that I'm encouraging you to use a baseball bat as a defensive tool. That probably wouldn't work very well for you. The number one reason I choose to carry a blade with me is because I can throw it in a pocket and it's easy to conceal if I need to. And it's usually a little bit more accepted in places that you go into. I live in a real rural community. Everyone carries a pocket knife. Most people carry more than one pocket knife, honestly, where I live. And so it's kind of a socially acceptable norm. But it also comes with a few other responsibilities. Understanding how to use a knife in a defensive use scenario is imperative. We got to talk about training, and we're going to talk about that more in a little bit. But it is still considered deadly force. If you change somebody's life, or they can't work, maybe you take an eye out, or God forbid you kill somebody, there's still serious ramifications. Knives can be just as deadly or more deadly in certain situations and in certain hands. I know people that can do it than a firearm, especially at close ranges. So keep that in mind. All right, let's talk about the training aspect when it comes to using a knife for self-defense. There are a lot of really, really good systems out there. I tend to espouse more to the Martial Blade Concepts. I don't know if you guys know who Michael Janich is. If you don't, check out his stuff. Very comprehensive. His system is all based around defensive use. There are a lot of edge weapon systems out there to train, and honestly, I think it's a good idea to kind of get a feel for all of these systems, whether it be Filipino-based or whatever. I mean, you got Libre, which is vicious. But I think it's important you need to kind of learn and understand, at least glean a little bit from these systems. But you also need to come to the mindset that you're not going to be the aggressor. In my opinion, you want to be in a defensive situation, not in the aggressive situation. So when you start looking into these defensive knife systems that are being taught, really pay attention on things like how they target, what are they defending from, how are you going to defend from an attack. Most competent, solid edge weapon instructors are willing to help you out and willing to bring you in and maybe even get a first 1 or 2 classes for free. I can't speak for everybody, but I know in my experience, especially with Martial Blade Concepts, I was able to learn about the system and I've actually spent quite a bit of time in it, and I really, really enjoy it. but it helps me understand what areas to target. For example, in Martial Blade Concepts, if somebody's coming at with a knife, we learn to target not massive arteries. We're not trying to kill somebody. We're just trying to defame the snake, and maybe you've heard that before. Just limit the ability of the aggressor. The point is not to kill somebody. The point is to stop the threat. Sorry, I'm a little excited. I've been under the weather. You can tell by my voice. The other thing you need to really understand is handling a knife is going to be a little bit different than handling a gun. It is a far more intimate interaction with somebody with a knife. A gun gives you time and distance. A knife is very, very close. And it is very, very scary when you get into a situation where it could be your life. That is extremely close. That is why training and understanding how to deploy a blade in a defensive situation is so critical to understand. You can't just pick up a knife and say, I'm good. The other thing with the education side of it is you need to find somebody that's willing to teach you kind of the legal aspect of it all. Again, a knife is considered a deadly weapon. You need to be very, very careful when deploying a knife and using it, even in a defensive situation, because you're going to get scrutinized on how you used it to defend yourself. I promise it will happen. And it's, again, ignorance is not an excuse. Now, I know there's other options out there that you can carry. There's pepper spray, there's tasers, there's all sorts of Kubotans. There's so many other alternatives to a knife, and maybe those alternatives are going to be a better choice for you. But you're never gonna know until you get involved and start understanding the dynamics of what tools you can use as a defense. If you're not cool with drawing blood or anything like that, or getting into any kind of altercation, maybe some of these other tools would be a better fit. Flashlights, Kubotans, pepper spray. There's tons of other options. The biggest thing I want to get out to you guys is don't be a victim. Learn to harden yourself. One of the most important things, the biggest defensive tool you have is your brain. Make sure you're developing a good mindset to stay away from any kind of conflict. See conflicts before they happen. Conflict avoidance, verbal jujitsu, if you will. It's important for you to get in a different mindset. We live in a totally different world than when I was a kid. Totally different. But there's ways you can start to develop a mindset of safety for you and your family, and I highly encourage you guys to work on it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and there's more to come.